Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, continuing reading Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Canto 6, Chapter 2, Deliverance of Ajamil, and we are on text 38. So, Ajamil has now become a pure devotee by the special mercy of Nam, the holy name. All his sins have been completely, all the reactions to his sinful activities have all been nullified. He's not going to be held accountable. He will not be receiving any sinful reactions for the heaps and mounds of atrocious actions he performed when he slipped from the platform of practicing devotional service, and he taking up where he left off. The Vishnu Dutas have interceded at the time of death. Ajamil has called out the holy name Narayana, and the account of how this is so delicate, the thread on which this is strung is so delicate, and yet it is indisputable and cannot be destroyed, because this is the potency of the spiritual energy, as it cuts right through. Even one little drop is so potent that the three modes of material nature have no jurisdiction. It's a very thin line, in one way of looking at it, that brought Ajamil to this point of actually becoming a pure devotee. When we look at his history, this is the Bhagavatam that we're studying is the translation with commentaries by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And this is saturated, this Bhagavatam, this translation and these commentaries is saturated with his personal ecstasies in pure devotion. So his commentaries and his translations, they don't block the message of Godhead that's there. They actually enhance it by the sweetness of his relishing the transcendence. So this is what we're studying. This is what we're hearing from. And so all potency is there. But this delicate thread that ran through Ajamil's life, that saved him. He was 88 years old. He led a very sinful life. But we can see the thin thread that carried through. It appears to be thin when compared to the mounds of sinful activities. But the sinful activities and the reactions for them, it's a whole nother nature that is temporary and doesn't have the same potency as the spiritual activities. And so the spiritual activities cut through. Just like it might be a very foggy day, early in the morning, sometimes a lot of moisture in the air, and it's very foggy, can't see anything. But the sun is there, and the potency of the sun is there, and that fog will clear. Although it looks like the fog is just taken over. It hasn't. It's a temporary manifestation. So similarly, the soul is eternal. Ajamil is a spiritual being. His nature is spiritual. And his sinful activities within the material environment are all just temporary, it's like a fog. So we can see that thread going through his life. And then we can also see that thread going through our lives, and how potent and how powerful this contact with this pure devotional service is. And so we can be reassured with full faith and confidence that at some point we will achieve the perfection. Ajamil achieved it, we will achieve it because we're in contact with the pure devotional energy. No matter what we may be dealing with or struggling with at the present moment, that spiritual energy is the actual fact. The other stuff is like a fog, it's like a cloud, and it will lift. It will lift. Because it's not our nature. Our nature is spiritual. We actually have nothing to do with the three modes of material nature. We have nothing to do with birth, death, old age, and disease. We're in a fog. So the more we engage in devotional activities, the more we chant Hare Krishna, the more we hear the messages of Godhead, the more that make contact with that pure devotional energy, engage in devotional service, the more that fog is going to lift. So his history is that Jamil was born into a Brahmin family. So that means in previous life, he was on the path of devotional service. He was on the path. He got a higher birth. He didn't finish in that life. He got another chance. He took birth in a Brahmin family. And up to the point of his young manhood and getting married and living household life as a young man, he had been practicing very, very nicely as a Brahmin devotional service, worshiping, serving the Guru, studying the scriptures. And it's described that his character was impeccable. He was kind to all living entities. He was clean, practicing devotional service, getting purified. While he was serving his spiritual master sent him to gather firewood. While he was there gathering the firewood for his spiritual master, he saw a man and a woman of degraded character engaging in sexual activity in full view, laughing and giggling and touching each other. They were drunk and exciting each other for sensual gratification, which in our day and age is everywhere. In Ajamil's time it happened, but it was very rare. He didn't see it. Society was more in line with the goal of life. Was inclined to more higher standard. Morality was a little higher standard. Everything wasn't all hanging out. So his mind became disturbed. He couldn't stop thinking about that. He began to desire to experience that. And he lost all his Brahminical focus. He lost interest in his young, beautiful wife. He didn't care about serving the Guru anymore. He just began to zoom in as if carried away by lust. He was carried away by a lusty desire. And he lost his social standing. He actually approached not just any prostitute, he wanted that prostitute. He lusted after that particular woman. And he made a life with her, a very degraded life. He had to support himself by stealing and lying and cheating. He lost his Brahminical culture. What could he do to support himself? He had to become a thief and a liar and a cheater to try and, I said he became like a dancing dog for her, to try to enjoy with her. And that went on until he was 88 years old. They produced children, they did the whole thing. Very degraded, intoxication, lying, cheating, illicit sex all over the place. His activities were very degraded. But it's described that Krishna didn't forget the service that he had performed. Jamil had performed devotional service, had been on the path of purification, path back home, and became distracted. And Krishna, within the heart, didn't forget. And Krishna promises, I will help you. If you become distracted, I am going to help you. We saw that with Bilvamangala Thakur also. In a previous life, he had actually practiced devotional service, and he was on the path back home to Godhead. And so he took birth in a wealthy family. That's the other kind of reward that comes. It's meant to be a boon, it's meant to be an asset, but it can be a deterrent. Being born in a high family and having everything handed to you, not so difficult. It can open the door for trying to indulge unnecessarily in sense gratification. And that's what happened to Bilvamangala. He, again, with the prostitute, and this illicit sexual activity is very dangerous, and for a practicing transcendentalist. This is the highest manifestation of lust. It's a completely perverted reflection of love of Godhead. It's totally down through matter. And his spiritual master helped him. Didn't forget. Krishna didn't forget the service that Bilvamangala had done in a previous life. He didn't forget. And his devotee is never vanquished. So he spoke through the prostitute and chastised him through the prostitute. You're so attached to me. If you had this much attraction and desire for Krishna, you'd be a pure devotee by now. Chastised him, embarrassed him, held the mirror up for him, give him a little slap. And it had its effect. He changed his direction in life completely and headed for Vrindavan. He remembered. He gained his Krishna gave him some intelligence, woke his, gave it, and he was listening. He heard the message. He was headed down the wrong path. He was headed to Narakaloka. Are you sure that's where you want to go, to Narakaloka? Are you sure you want to deal with Yamaraj and the Yamadutas? Are you sure about that now? There's a tree with thorns waiting for you, and there's the form of a woman made out of hot iron waiting for you. Are you sure that's where you want to go? Or would you rather be with Krishna and not have to go through birth, death, old age, and disease? So he gained his intelligence. So Krishna didn't forget. And Krishna didn't forget Ajamil either. And he gave him some good intelligence from within the heart. Now why don't you name your son after me? Why don't you name your small son Narayana? Why don't you go ahead and do that? Do you think that's a good idea? Ajamil was listening. Yes, I think I'll name my son Narayana. I think that's a good idea. With no intention of serving Narayana, with no intention of surrendering to Narayana, but he had just surrendered to Narayana. And every time he called out to his small son Narayana, he was engaging in a Gyata Sukriti, devotional service, without knowing it. Devotional service is so potent, it's like fire. If someone doesn't understand what fire can do, it doesn't mean that fire can't do it. Fire has a certain potency, and it will do it whether the person understands or not. Fire will burn. So the spiritual potency of the holy name is like fire. There's potency there, whether the person knows it or doesn't know it. The potency is there because the Lord has manifest all his energies in his holy name alone. It's not something that can be understood through speculation. It's something that is realized and experienced by taking shelter of the holy name. Then Krishna reveals himself. Krishna says, only by undivided devotional service can I be known as I am, standing before you. So with the holy name, Krishna doesn't reveal himself unless someone surrenders to taking the holy name and chanting and calling out to Krishna. Then the realization comes, the experience comes, that Krishna is there in his holy name. Because without devotional service, Krishna consciousness is not available. However, due to the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and the Sankirtan movement in this Kali Yuga, whether people understand it or don't, they're being exposed to Krishna by hearing the name, the holy names, seeing the devotees who are becoming more and more active in propagating the holy names of the Lord around the world. So the mercy is flowing. The ocean of Sankirtan is increasing. Sankirtan Yagna. So this thread had run through Ajamil's life. He took birth in a Brahmin family, got the chance to practice some more on the path back home to Godhead, devotional service, and slipped off the road into the ditch of Maya, illusory energy. But Krishna didn't forget him, prompted him from within the heart to name his son after him, Narayana. Gave him a little protection there. And at the time of death, all through the child's life, Ajamil was calling out for him, Narayana, come here. Narayana, eat your meal. Narayana, come play with Daddy. Narayana, don't do that. So he was calling Narayana, 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 Narayana. And Narayana is the name of the Lord, which means give shelter to all, shelter of all living entities. Nara, Ana, shelter of all living entities. And at the time of death, a small child was playing near the deathbed of Jamil, and he called out for Narayana. When he saw that Yamadutas coming after him, coming toward him, very fearsome looking beings coming toward him, he called out to his small son, Narayana. And the Vishnudutas heard. They came directly from Vaikuntha Loka, and they interceded. And Ajamil got to hear the conversation between the Yamadutas, who were presenting from the Vedic scriptures why they had authority to take a sinful person like Ajamil for punishment in Naraka Loka. And he got to hear the counter-argument of the Vishnudutas, who were, by contrast, exceptionally beautiful, glowing, beautiful bodily features. And we can just imagine that the sound of their voice must have also been quite melodious. Must have been a very beautiful sound hearing them speak. And their defense was that he had called out for Narayana, and that's the highest principle, highest religious principle. It trumps any kind of moral consideration, or any kind of pious or impious accounting for one's activities. Calling out for the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the goal of life. And that's what, so Ajamil heard this. And he saw them save him from the Yamadutas. And he wanted to offer prayers to the Vishnudutas, but they disappeared immediately. And Ajamil did not leave his body at that time. He was destined to, but in contact with devotional service, one's lifespan can be extended. Just like in contact with degraded material involvement, material activities, one's lifespan is shortened. Well, in contact with devotional service, the lifespan is extended. And so Ajamil got an extension at that time to allow him to engage more directly in devotional service and to make some progress. But at that time, when he heard the messages of Godhead as they were extolled by the Vishnudutas, he actually became a pure devotee right at that time. By the association of these great souls. And Prabhupada says that they were Vaishnavas, and that Vaishnavas are residents of Vaikuntha. So there's no difference. A Vaishnava is a resident of Vaikuntha. And we're hearing that from a resident of Vaikuntha, so we can take that as true. So this is where we are. And now Ajamil, after having experienced all that, and we can see that thread running through his life, and how the fog was immediately dissipated. Immediately. And he took up where he had left off. It was as if he had fallen into a coma or was in a dream state while he was engaging all the sinful activity. It's like he was pretty much, as we would say, unconscious and simply being dragged around by the modes of material nature. He had completely lost control of his life, control of his senses. Now he regained control of his situation by surrendering to the pure devotees, the Vishnudutas, and ultimately Narayana, or Krishna. So at this point he's actually lamenting. He's feeling terrible about his misbehavior. And he's lamenting that he wasted so much time, did so many dumb, stupid things. It hurt so many people. He disappointed so many people. His aging parents, he didn't care for them. He didn't make sure that they had what they needed. And people that he cheated to get money so he could do these abominable activities with this degraded woman. And just, he was feeling terrible. Just absolutely terrible about himself. And Prabhupada says that this is required. We should have this kind of remorse about where we've come from, and that will protect us from slipping back. We should never be proud, falsely proud of, now I am a devotee of Krishna. This is not acceptable. We should always have that remorse in our heart. So, this is text 38. Simply because, this is Ajamil, simply because I chanted the holy name of the Lord in the association of devotees, my heart is now becoming purified. Therefore, I shall not fall victim again to false lures of material sense gratification. Now that I've become fixed in the absolute truth, henceforward, I shall not identify myself with the body. I shall give up false conceptions of I and mine, fix my mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. We should all say this wonderful verse. I'm going to read the Sanskrit. Mamaham iti dehado hitvam ityartha dirmati dasye mano bhagavati sudam tatkrit kirtana dibi. I'm going to read it again. Simply because I chanted the holy name of the Lord in the association of devotees, my heart is now becoming purified. Therefore, I shall not fall victim again to false lures of material sense gratification. So you experienced a higher taste is what happened. You experience a higher taste, and you don't fall victim to a lower taste. You have the strength to say, no thank you, I think I'll pass on that. Something else that I'm interested in. I have a higher taste, something else I like to do better. Taste of love of God. Just a little taste. Want more. Become greedy. Want more. Now that I've become fixed in the absolute truth, I shall not identify myself with the body. See, that's the problem. When we identify with the body, then we can become victimized by material sense gratification. We forget our spiritual nature, and we lose our taste for engaging in devotional activity, for desire to go back home, back to Godhead, because we identify with the body. And being situated in the material modes of material nature, this is something that can never be, while we're encapsulated, entrapped, entangled, residing in a material covering. We should always be on guard for this. Never, constant vigilance is the price of freedom. Always have to be on guard for this. Of course, the best way to be on guard is to always engage in devotional service. And there are 9 types of devotional service. One of them is hearing and chanting, or 2 of them are. One is hearing, the other is chanting. And this is the recommended form of devotional service for this age by Sri Krishna Chaitanya himself. And he's come in the form of the Harinam Sankirtan to emphasize this hearing and chanting of the holy name. And we see here in the association of devotees. So that is the Sankirtan. Sankirtan also means loudly. It means in the association of devotees chanting together in kirtan. And it also means if someone is alone chanting loudly. That's also kirtan. Bhajan and japa is when one is chanting quietly. And kirtan means for the benefit of others. So Sankirtan can also be one person chanting loudly for the benefit of others. It can also be Sankirtan. I remember reading that. I should have referenced it because it really stuck out when I read it. So I'll not identify myself with the body. He sees that's the problem. I shall give up this conception of I and mine and fix my mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. Sometimes this is mistaken, that that if you develop love of, if you become God conscious, then you don't exist anymore. There's no you. What Ajamil is saying, false conceptions of I and mine based on the body. There is an I, there is a me. And that's how we can have that relationship with the big I, the big me, Krishna. There has to be 2 to have a relationship. So it's not that we don't exist anymore. If I develop Krishna consciousness means we don't exist anymore. We're in oblivion and we just merge with some kind of big energy field or something, which is a popular misconception. But what Ajamil is saying, I'll give up false conceptions of I and mine, which means based on the body, and fix my mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. That's the good spot, the lotus feet. That's the sweet spot. Prabhupada's commentary. How a living entity becomes a victim of the material condition is lucidly explained in this verse. The beginning is to misidentify the body as oneself. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita begins with the spiritual instruction that one is not the body, but is within the body. This consciousness can be possible only if one chants the holy name of Krishna, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and always keeps oneself in the association of devotees. This is the secret of success. So, should always keep oneself in the association of devotees. What does that mean, to associate with devotees? And what devotees is this referring to? Well, there's lots of different levels of this. There's lots of different levels. Keeping oneself in the association of devotees means hearing from them, serving them, and the best devotees are the pure devotees. And those that are sincerely trying to serve the pure devotees. To stay in that association, make progress very quickly, very rapidly. Purification takes place very quickly with that kind of association. And then there's different levels of association. There are neophyte devotees who are only seeing the Lord in his deity form in the temple, but they can't distinguish who is a devotee and who isn't a devotee. But they're engaging under the direction of spiritual master in devotional service, acts of devotional service. So they are devotees. But their personal level of realization is not very strong. So for those that are devotees, in terms of associating with devotees, for those devotees who aren't very advanced like that, but are practicing, and someday will become advanced, you should give good guidance, encouragement, help them, encourage them, enliven them, and when possible, give some good instruction, like this. And then there are devotees that are more or less at the same level of advancement. This is true for everyone, no matter what level they're on. For someone who's, it's called Kanista Adhikari, there are those that are less advanced than them. And so they also have these 3 tiers of devotee association. And it is their duty to try and help those that are less advanced than they are. And then there's always others that are on the same level, more or less. And then there are others that are more advanced. And that's true wherever one finds oneself on the spectrum. There's always someone more needy, someone on the same level, and someone who has a lot to give. So for those that are on the same level, we make friendship. And we share realizations. If possible, share prasadam and help each other like that. We share realizations. Become friendly, a little friendly association. And for those that are more advanced, we take instruction. And we offer service when possible. We offer some service and we take instruction and guidance. So that's how we stay in the association of devotees. We certainly, by all means, avoid fault-finding and offense. These things they destroy, they completely uproot the devotional service of an aspiring devotee. very, very dangerous. By serving Krishna and serving the pure devotees, whatever problems are there will be rectified in the course of serving the Lord. But it is a big trick of Maya, that individual devotees, out of their own sense of importance, false idea of self, engage in fault finding. So, for associating with devotees, the best thing is simply to engage in devotional service. Never deviate even for a moment from taking shelter as a servant of the Lord. Prabhupada said this is the secret of success. Always keep oneself in the association of devotees. So, what if a devotee doesn't live in a temple? Or what if a devotee is trying to practice, doesn't have much association? He's in an isolated area. Well, in this day and age, the technology is such that communications are greatly enhanced. There's an infrastructure in place that allows devotees to communicate across vast amounts of space and distance, and to use that. We use whatever facilities we have to associate, sharing realizations, encouraging one another, whenever possible, if someone needs instruction, instructing them. And in this way, we take advantage of associating. So, this is one of the advantages of the technology age. Or, as Prabhupada is very fond of saying, we use everything, the dictaphone, the microphone, the printing press, and now we use Wi-Fi, the internet, Facebook, whatever we have at our disposal, we use to try to serve Krishna in the association of devotees. So in a way, that is expanding the association of devotees. Incredible expansion going on. Just like kirtan on the street. Oh, it's so wonderful. It's super wonderful. Kirtan on the street is there. And then with the printing of the books, Prabhupada's refer to that as, that's a big mridanga. So that message of Godhead, now written in written form, can go far and wide in many different languages. So that's a big mridanga. And so also now the internet, far and wide, people can see the videos of kirtans. They can hear the lectures of the devotees. They can see the deities in the temple. Isn't that an expansion? Of course it's an expansion. It's wonderful. So, with all of this going on, we should take advantage and make our lives perfect wherever we are. We have so much facility now. So Prabhupada continues, therefore we stress that one should chant the holy name of the Lord, keep oneself free from the contaminations of this material world, especially the contaminations of lusty desires for illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. With determination, one should vow to follow these principles and thus be saved from the miserable condition of material existence. The first necessity is to become freed from the bodily concept of life. Yeah, Ajamil could see what happened to him is that he began to identify with his material desires, which means his material senses, his material body, and the senses, material senses, being stimulated for experiencing material, quote-unquote, enjoyment. And this is the problem, identifying with the body. So Prabhupada says the first necessity, become freed from the bodily concept of life. So by engaging in practices of devotional service, only offering certain foods, taking only foods, certain foods that have been offered to the Lord, then the tongue can be satisfied and purified, becomes Krishna's mercy and not just sense gratification. So just vegetarian food's not enough. It has to be offered to Krishna for getting that connection with devotional service. And seeing something, we can see the beautiful forms of the deities, the beautiful paintings and pictures, the beautiful temples, like this. And sense of smell, wanting to smell something, and we can smell the flowers and the tulsi and the incense. Very nice. And hearing. There's so many wonderful things to hear in relationship with Krishna. Kirtans, bhajans, just lovely, just lovely. And there are theatrical performances glorifying the pastimes of Krishna. So then you get a lot of senses involved, hearing and seeing, and sense of touch. Want to touch something nice, and we use our hands to make the flower garlands. Not that we're enjoying these things, but the hands are engaged, the feet engaged in going to the temple. And it's also said, sense of touch, that in association of devotees there will be some touching with the bodies of devotees. So then it's very purifying, in association with the devotees of the Lord. It just happens naturally in association. It's not that trying to enjoy somehow. These things just, they're there in serving Krishna, and the senses become satisfied and happy. So the first necessity is to become freed from the bodily concept of life. So we understand that, and then we act. We perform acts in devotional service. And even if we don't understand that, if we just have the inclination to follow the instructions of someone engaged in devotional service whom we respect, even without understanding anything, we'll get the benefit, because the acts of devotional service are purifying, because they're in connection with Krishna. So the thing is to accept the mercy in whatever form it comes. Text 39, and this is what Ajamil is realizing. Because of a moment's association with devotees, the Vishnudutas, Ajamil detached himself from the material conception of life with determination. This is Sukadeva Goswami talking to Maharaj Parikshit now. He had just been relating this pastime, this story, to show the super excellence of devotional service. Thus, freed from all material attraction, he immediately started for Hardwar. I say, because of a moment's association. And it was a very brief association. It wasn't like Ajamil was studying and the Vishnudutas were teaching him over years and years and years. It was just a few moments. It actually took place very quickly. Conversation with the Yamadutas and the appearance of the Vishnudutas. Because of a moment's association with a Vaishnav, with a resident of Vaikuntha, he was able to detach himself from material conception of life with determination. And then he started for Hardwar. He was going to finish up his preparing for leaving material body, he was going to engage in devotional service. Prabhupada's commentary. The word mukta sarvanubandhana indicates that after this incident, Jamil, not caring for his wife and children, went straight to Hardwar for further advancement in his spiritual life. He just dropped that relationship. He left it up to Krishna is what he did. He had received a higher instruction of what his duty was. Not caring for wife and children is not a good thing to do. If one has taken on the responsibility of wife and children, you can't just drop it like that. But in this case, Jamil had received a higher instruction. His instruction was to become detached from the material body and the things associated with the material body, and to take up devotional service totally, completely, and prepare for leaving. After all, he was 88 years old. So he left it up to Krishna. Our Krishna consciousness movement now has centers in Vrindavan and Navadvip, so that those who want to live a retired life, whether they be devotees or not, can go there and with determination give up the bodily concept of life. One is welcome to live in those holy places for the rest of his life in order to achieve the highest success by the very simple method of chanting the holy name of the Lord and taking prasadam. Prabhupada says that's the purpose. He says, so that those who want to have a retired life, he says, whether they be devotees or not. And they can give up the bodily concept of life. A very simple process of hearing and chanting and taking prasadam. There are so many pressures by living anywhere else other than the holy dhams. Pressures for maintenance, pressures for government control, exposure to sinful advertising, sinful activities. Outside the holy dham, that's the program, is to engage in materialistic activities. So it's very, very difficult to find anywhere where one can peacefully fix the mind on Krishna without hearing some nonsense music or being harassed by some tax collector or trying to maintain oneself safely without being attacked by rascals and rogues and thieves who sometimes just like to give pain to someone just for the sake of giving pain to them. So Prabhupada is establishing here that the holy places, Vrindavan and Navadvip, are for persons who want to retire, live simply, chanting and hearing and taking prasadam, and prepare for leaving. He says they're in those holy places for the rest of their life. So he doesn't say an old person. He says, well, retired life. Generally that means one has lived the major portion of their lifespan is gone, and now they're entering into retirement. They're not concerned with managing family or making a living or maintaining a business, whatever. Their concern now, like a Jamil, is to take up devotional service completely, become freed from those pressures, material pressures. Thus one may return home back to Godhead. We do not have a center in Hardwar, but Vrindavan and Sridham Mayapur are better for devotees than other places. Chaitanya Chandrodaya Temple offers one a good opportunity to associate with devotees. Let us all take advantage of this opportunity. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. It's an open invitation by Srila Prabhupada. All the Ajamils should come to Chaitanya Chandrodaya Temple. Surrender to Krishna. Prepare for going back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Text 40. In Hardwar, Ajamil took shelter at a Vishnu temple, where he executed the process of bhakti yoga. He controlled his senses and fully applied his mind in the service of the Lord. Yeah, that's the ideal situation. It's ideal. And this is what the Vaishnavas arrange. This is their preaching work, is they make these arrangements so that the living entities, all the Ajamils, can come and engage in devotional service and go back home, back to Godhead. Prabhupada's commentary. Devotees who have joined the Krishna consciousness movement may live comfortably in our many temples and engage in devotional service of the Lord. Thus they can control the mind and senses and achieve the highest success in life. This is the process descending from time immemorial. Learning from the life of Ajamil, we should vow with determination to do what is necessary to follow this path. Yeah. Learning from the life of Ajamil, we should vow with determination to do what is necessary to follow this path. This is why the temples are there, to facilitate us, the Ajamils. So, Hare Krishna. They're there so they may live comfortably and engage in devotional service of the Lord. So this is going on worldwide. There is Vrindavan and Chaitanya Chandrodaya Temple in Mayapur, but there are temples, Prabhupada has established Krishna temples or Vishnu temples all over the planet. And there's more opening up every day, and preaching centers, and people practicing in their homes and inviting friends. Programs in colleges to introduce people to Krishna consciousness. So, no sense engaging in material endeavors. We arrange our life in such a way that we can hear and chant, take complete shelter of Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, prepare to go back home, back to Godhead. That is what we must do, just like Ajamil. Take that, become determined. That's our determination. Do what is necessary to follow this path. Text 41. Well, I think I'll wait. There's a long purport, and time is up pretty much.